Hi guys, welcome back to the Coffee Break Podcast. I am your host, Emily Lung, and hello, welcome back. Long time no chat. Just kidding. We just chatted last Wednesday, but hello. I literally love this time of the week where I get to record the podcast because it's just so much fun, and the support you guys have shown me is just through the roof. And I know I say that every episode, but I seriously mean it, and it's just awesome seeing our community grow. So I thank you so much. But yeah, just had to say that again because y'all are the bomb. Best community by far. But I also wanted to remind you to support the podcast on Instagram by following thecoffeebreak.podcast. I believe that's my Instagram. It's linked down in the show notes, so definitely check that out. It's actually linked on my personal Instagram too in my bio at Emily Lung, so make sure you're following both of those so you're up to date on the pod, and like my Facebook page as well because I keep y'all up to date on everything there as well. So yeah, moving forward, little life update, we give you every little week. So I told y'all last week that I got a spin bike, and it has been the best investment ever. I did a whole YouTube video on it. It's so awesome. I've been getting my cardio in this quarantine. It's been so nice. I'm not a runner because I have really bad knees, and spin is just really good low impact for my knees. So I've been loving that. And on top of spinning, baking has surprisingly become my new freaking hobby, y'all. If you follow me on Instagram, I have been baking banana bread. I made chocolate chip cookies from scratch. I made sugar cookies from scratch. I've made a couple things. I've just been loving it. I have all the baking essentials now. I have this really nice mixer. It's not a KitchenAid, but it's like a knockoff KitchenAid. It is the bomb, and anyways, next on my list is homemade pancakes and peanut butter cookies. So if you have good recipes for those, slide in my DMs, let me know, because I've just taken on that hobby full force and it's been so much fun. And also on top of baking, I've been obviously cooking a ton. I used to be like a go out to eat type of gal, and obviously with quarantine, I've been trying to do my part to not eat out, but obviously, we ordered sushi last night, so we have ordered out. Gotta support our local businesses. But oh my gosh, I am an awful cook. Let me just say, I'm a horrible cook. But there's some things that I'm getting better at. I made some bomb nachos the other night. Chicken enchiladas, I can cook those. Oh my gosh, chicken enchiladas are I could eat those for the rest of my life. So I think personally my chicken enchiladas are pretty good, but I have to give that credit to my dad because obviously he's the one that taught me how to do that. But yeah, cooking and baking, who would have thought Emily Lung in 2020 would be wife material? Jeez. Anyways, but moving forward with today's episode, if you can't tell by the title, we're jumping into the college talk. It's a big talk, especially this time with people going off to college the next few months, hopefully, depending what's going on with Corona. And then there's also, juniors who are about to be seniors who are looking into colleges. And my college experience was very different than most. And I just wanted to kind of dive into that today and also bring you along with another story, hence my brother joining the podcast today. So I want to give you kind of a rundown of both of our experiences. I'm going to interview him about, what helped him and what didn't help him and the struggles he faced as well. So I am so excited to jump into that. But before we get started, I do want to give y'all a rundown of my college experience because I feel like I haven't fully explained that. I've made note that I am a quote unquote college dropout, but I haven't really told y'all the whole story and the reason behind it. So when we jump into this interview, there'll be things that we'll be debating. And if you don't know, at least a summary of my story, it's could be confusing. So I do want to give you all a short rundown. Maybe I'll do a whole episode on my experience later, but this is more of a comparison. So obviously you need to know my story. So for starters, I did go to college right out of high school. I went to Texas State University. I went there for almost 5 years, and I didn't end up with a degree, which will be mind-blowing to some of you because you're oh, you should have a degree in 4 years, da-da-da-da-da. It's just so untraditional now, I feel to do it within the 4-year time frame. And, if you come straight out of high school with all these credits, then yeah, maybe you will. But I just feel you're still learning yourself, and what if that's something you don't want to do? I had a lot of degree changes. So I went in as a communications major because I wanted to be a news anchor. And then I changed to a biology major because I thought I wanted to be pre-med and go and be a PA, which obviously I didn't do. And then I really got into like fitness and coaching and just realized like that was my passion. And so I ended up changing my degree plan again. Actually, from there I went to business. From business, I ended up changing to what my latest degree was, which was health and fitness management. And I loved that degree. I actually really, really enjoyed it, although college just wasn't for me. I was never a very studious kid growing up. My brother was way more studious than me, like just very naturally smart. And I had to try very hard to make good grades. Like I didn't make bad grades. And it's not that I was a bad kid. I don't want to call them learning disabilities. Like I don't want to use that because I was never diagnosed, but I definitely had something that made school hard for me. I had a really hard time comprehending. I did take remedial math class, not remedial math. I was really good at math. Remedial like reading classes with comprehension. I just always struggle with that. So going into college where you read a textbook a lot, I really struggled, and I did what I could to like keep up, and I, passed my classes. I think I failed one class throughout college. I will admit it. I failed one. I retook it. I passed it. Boom. I was good to go. But it was a lot of comprehension issues, and I wish I would have noticed that like a teacher in high school or something would have like helped me through that. And I just, even with taking these remedial reading classes, it just never helped. It's really sad that I never got the help I needed, because it really affected my college experience. So other than grades, I love college because I'm a social butterfly. It was really fun for me, but at the same time, I didn't want to leave Austin because all my friends were here. My family had a really fun job at Texas Roadhouse, waiting tables, and I just there was no point of me leaving. And Texas State was only 30 minutes, so I commuted. I like drove to Texas State 4 times a week and did my classes, and I drove back, and I went straight to work from school. I was coaching cheer. And, it just wasn't your typical college upbringing. I didn't join a sorority. I didn't do any clubs. So I wasn't making a lot of friends in college. It was literally just go educate, go work till from 3 to 10, and then try to stay up late and do work, and then wake up and do it all over again. And then on the weekends, I'd be working like double shifts at work, like Texas Roadhouse for fun sometimes. It was a lot going on for me. And it was a struggle, okay? Ended up leaving Texas Roadhouse and just coaching, which helped some. I went down on my school load to just 12 hours instead of doing 15, 16. That helped some, but I was still struggling and I wasn't happy, and there was a lot of mental breakdowns and episodes, which you go through in college, but it was really affecting my mental health. So I took a semester off, which was really good. I decided it was time to go back. I went back. A year later, I was like, this isn't for me. I'm mentally back to where I was. It just wasn't healthy. And so I ended up dropping out of college. And I have these moments where I really want to go back, because this is going to blow a lot of your minds that I have 4 classes to complete my bachelor's degree. But my mental health was so much more important than that piece of paper. And I have not been to where, I'm so much happier now than where I was. And I think constantly about going back and doing online, and maybe one day I will. And so that's why I loosely use the term college dropout, because I believe one day I'll probably go back and finish those 4 classes or do them online or do something. But as of right now, it's not a priority to me. My priority is my career, and that's just my main focus. So I love my job. I love coaching. It is a full-time job with benefits. Before anyone wants to come at me, it is a real job. I think people don't understand the intensity, I don't even know what the right word is, of coaching. So it is very time consuming. And I love it. It's my life. So anyways, that's my short little rundown of my college experience. And when you hear us comparing, that's kind of it. 2 big differences between my brother and I is he transferred schools and he lived on campus. So those are 2 big things we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I'm very excited to bring him on because like I said, our college experiences were like night and day different. So I just wanted to, share these stories with you guys and kind of help, or just, for entertainment, maybe compare it to your college experience. So without further ado, here is the interview with my brother and I. All right, guys, I want to welcome my brother to the podcast.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
I really thought you were going to be like, what up? You always say that.
I mean, I do say that a lot, but I don't even know.
Well, I just gave the podcast a rundown of like a little bit of my backstory of my college experience because, you know, mine was very different from yours.
Definitely.
Hence why we're doing the podcast. So, for starters, why don't you give them just like a short little summary, like, you know, how old are you, where you went to school, maybe what your degree's in, and something like that.
Definitely. So I'm Emily's brother, and I'm 25 years old. I went to Texas State originally for college for a little bit, dropped out for a short period of time, and then went to TAMU UCC to study media arts and like filmmaking. After that, got into advertising, film production, and most recently was working on Queer Eye, the Netflix TV show.
Boom, which I think so cool, you know, like biggest Queer Eye fan ever. And so when he like finally, you know, broke the silence and told the fam, oh, I was so pumped. That's so cool. I think that's so cool. So I get a lot of like questions about my brother, like, you know, he's the cool sibling. All my friends are like, he does like the coolest stuff and he like travels to all these weird countries and so this is finally him on the podcast for everybody always asking. So anyways, so what helped you, like, okay, think about like senior in high school buddy. What helped you like decide where you wanted to apply and why? Because you applied to a bunch of different schools than where I applied.
Definitely. I think when I was in high school, I could care less about college. Like, I was like kind of over it. And I think there wasn't...
Well, you debated military for a little bit.
I did. I for at least half of my high school career, I was wanting to be like a Navy SEAL and go do like special forces, military stuff like that. Like, I was training and running and super fit, did all of that. And it was just because I just didn't want to be like bored and more coursework for another 4 years. I was just not about it, and I wanted to travel. Like, travel. That was all I really cared about. And military, for whatever reason, was like an easy way to get into that. At least that's how I reflect on it now. I don't know exactly what my mind was doing at the time, but anyways, last minute, I decided, like, you know what, military is probably not a good option, and I applied to colleges, and I applied to A&M proper, UT, Texas State, I think University of Colorado Boulder, and maybe one other, but I got into Texas State. I didn't get into UT, which is heartbreaking. Didn't get into A&M.
We both got waitlisted, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, they like do like the go to UTSA for a year,
yeah,
and make straight A's. And,
nah.
I mean, even if I went to UTSA, I would not gotten the grades to transfer into UT just because getting into like, okay, so I decided to go to Texas State. I think that was mainly because you were there, as well as like our parents were very pushy on the fact that it was just nice to stay close to home to save money because we didn't have any money really.
Yeah, we didn't have any money.
Yeah, we're paying all for ourselves. So I was like, that's a good idea, and like I really want to be in college in the first place. So I did that, and I was studying biology of all things, and I don't know why I decided biology. I think in my
we both studied biology for a short period of time.
And yeah, I mean, like I took like the science major biology courses, science major chemistry courses that freshman year. Like, it was brutal, but I don't exactly remember why I decided to do that. I think it was like, oh, I want to be a doctor and make money, and doctors study biology.
Well, I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember because you were really into robotics still, like in high school and like coming out of high school. And so I remember this conversation and, you know, where you wanted to do like prosthetics.
That was something, actually. I haven't thought about that in years, actually. You just brought that back to my mind.
Because you wanted to do like robotic prosthetics.
Yeah, it was like bioengineering, biotechnology or something like that.
Yes.
It was because I took a course on it at Aikens. They had a brand new, in one of the STEM technology classes was bioengineering or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's actually, but that was like a transition point because from biology, then I changed my major to electrical engineering, and I did electrical engineering. I was like, no, fuck that. I did computer science for a bit, and like, no, fuck that. Went all around. And then I changed I had so many majors. I did philosophy.
So did I.
Let's break it all down. It was biology, electrical engineering, computer science. Then finally I was like, you know what? Fuck the science and technology. Can I cuss on this? I don't even know if I can cuss on this.
Yeah, you're fine.
Because like it was just not working out, and that's why I went to
and then you did poli-sci.
I did poli-sci, and then philosophy.
Oh my god.
Poli-sci, I was bored in poli-sci. Poli-sci was just like the professors rambled on. Like it was like listen to politicians talk all day, and I was like, nah, I'm not about this. And I didn't agree with them, so I was like, nah. Then I went to philosophy and got into arguments with my professors because, I mean, that's what like you're supposed to do in philosophy, but like I was tired of it. I was like, I didn't like it either. A lot of writing, and honestly, in this period that I was at Texas State for these 2 years where I was just major changing, like, actually I was there for 3 years, that I was just constantly changing majors. I just didn't want to be in school anyways, so like I was doing really bad in the coursework. Anything involved writing, I didn't do. I didn't study for tests. Like I couldn't care less. So that's also why I think I just kept changing. I didn't like philosophy and whatnot. And then I did geography of all things, and geography was the closest thing to what I think I would like because it involved just the world.
Yeah.
And the ultimate goal was just to travel. So I think geography was very close to that, and I inherently did good in the coursework because I already had an interest in like what was happening.
So when you dropped out of Texas State, is that right after that? Is that when you went to Asia?
It wasn't directly after. So I dropped out in like the end of the spring semester. And then I don't remember what I did over the summer. Maybe was that when I got a job with Inland doing the surf park thing?
I think so.
So,
but it was between the two schools is when you went, right?
Yeah, definitely. But it wasn't until like the spring almost of the following year.
Gotcha. So, since we're still on the Texas State topic,
or did I? Hold on, let me think back real quick.
Now you're thinking about it.
Did I might have dropped out in the fall. I don't know, but so the main turning point though when I dropped out was that I worked at an Amazon warehouse in the winter for like the winter Christmas like rush.
I forgot about that.
And that was like the most terrible experience I think I've ever had. As an adult, I guess you can say at the time I was like, like all I was doing was working. I wasn't in school or anything. Because it was just, you go in at like 7 a.m. It's still dark outside. It's in the winter. Daylight savings and all that. So you go in, it's still dark outside. You do a 12-hour shift. You walk outside, and it's like sunset. And I'm driving back to Austin from like San Marcos, and it's like getting dark. So basically, you're awake.
Your whole
day of daylight is inside this giant warehouse, just doing monotonous tasks over and over and over again.
No windows.
No windows for like, I think it paid like $10 or $11 an hour, and it was just like mentally taxing. Like, could not do it. And that's whenever going through that process was like, okay, I have to do something. I've always wanted to travel. I have a little bit of money saved up. And that's whenever I just said, fuck it, bought a ticket.
And
yeah.
You left Asia. Yeah. That's like a whole other episode I feel like we could do on that experience and that story time with
that was a lot.
That. But so with still staying on the Texas State topic, do you think living on campus made a difference in your college experience versus mine? Because, I stayed home and I commuted. And obviously we're different people, but you lived in two different dorms. You lived like on the most bougiest dorm on campus, and then you went to like a ghetto one because you wanted to save some money. So like what was your experience living on campus? Do you like recommend it for people that live close to home, or do you even care? What's your take?
I recommend it. I think my first semester, I've always been very introverted, and definitely while I was at Texas State, I would still call myself a very introverted person, more so than I am now, but I do recommend it because it kind of forces you to be involved. It forces you to find new friends, forces you to be like a part of the culture that is the college university. I felt like, so I did both because like, my second and a half and third year, I was commuting like you were.
Yeah.
And like during that time, I got so detached from the world that was Texas State that I cared even less. It was just like this thing I had to go do, and like
that's how I felt. I hated going. I didn't enjoy it because I didn't have any friends and I didn't have anything to do on campus while being there.
Yeah, I mean, but like when I was there, I was very involved. Like I had a lot more friends. I would go to like groups and meetings, and I would go like there would be a thing. I would go join like some meeting or just to get like free pizza. But you'd meet friends and stuff. So
yeah,
and just being there. Allows you to focus more on the actual aspect of being in college.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, and then I did transfer to the cheap dorm, and then I did that because I wanted to get more of my refund money back to myself, which was great. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's cool. That's my biggest regret is not living on campus or even just living in San Marcos while going there because I don't really have anyone. I'm like, oh, that's my college friend. Like I don't have that. So now with transferring or going back to school when you went to A&M.
Mhm.
You had a tough time with that transfer.
I mean,
I love this story. You have to share it.
what part of what story are we talking about?
When you had to appeal.
Oh, okay, yeah. So my grades were so terrible at Texas State. Like, it got below.
Because you didn't care.
Yeah, I think my GPA was below a 2, which was, you have to have a 2.0 to basically transfer in without worrying to TAM UCC or really any college. Well, any lower grade college like that. Well, that's a bad way to put it. But any other college. You have to have at least a 2.0. Mine was like a 1.8 something because I just didn't give a fuck at Texas State. And so I applied, they rejected me, and I was like, well, this is my only option. This is like post-traveling. I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to study filmmaking. And so I appealed. I wrote this whole letter and filled this application explaining why I should get in. And for whatever reason, they accepted me. But they let me in, and I went down to Corpus and did 2 years. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because I think some people don't realize that you can even appeal. Like, I didn't know that was a thing until you did that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize the thing either until I was like kind of on the desperate end of it, where it was just like, well, I really want to go back to school. I do not want to go back to Texas State. And because of the GPA situation, I couldn't go to any school anywhere without an appeal process. Yeah. And that's when I discovered the appeal process. So it worked out in my favor.
That's awesome. So switching from like Texas State University, which is like obviously a larger university than TAM UCC, what did you like or not like about, like, what was the biggest differences in like this changing size of school?
I think the biggest difference is the class sizes, and I think that directly correlates to like you being able to learn at a way let me just rephrase that. You can learn way easier. Like it's way more engaging to talk to professors and easier to like learn concepts and stuff when you're like talking to people in a very intimate setting, kind of like high school, like 20 people in a class, versus being these large lecture halls at Texas State where you have 300 people and you're just being, talked to.
Yeah. Where there's me like sitting in the back left corner on Amazon shopping, like there's no one forcing you to be engaged. Whereas some of my freshman level courses, when there's only like 18 in an English class because you're having to discuss literature, I had to pay attention. I had to read because she knows me by my name. So I definitely get that for sure. You know what I do want to touch on? So you went from being like basically on academic probation at Texas State, like dropping out, having a horrible GPA, but then you graduated with honors.
So yeah,
So
I think that is a bit of a loophole that I think transferring allows people to do, because when you transfer, most colleges, maybe all colleges, only take your GPA while you're at that university when they calculate honors. So basically, they use all my credits from Texas State to fill in my degree plan for I can, finish the program and graduate. But they don't take the GPA from it. That GPA just kind of sits there, and then they only use the GPA that I earned while at TAM UCC or at the new college. So basically, while I was at TAM UCC, I just got straight A's, 1B, maybe 2 B's, and that's why I was able to get honors. But it is kind of a loophole because it's like, it kind of makes the system where it's like, if you want honors for that reason, just transfer like your sophomore year after your sophomore year, because everybody fucks up their freshman, sophomore year.
Oh, for sure.
Then transfer somewhere, and then you can just focus in on your junior and senior level courses, which are usually the ones you like anyways, because it's like major specific.
It's fun.
Yeah.
When did you realize you really want to do filmmaking? Like, because you've always been like, science and math like based, and you did the STEM program in high school, and we always thought you'd do something engineering or computer science. At what point did you notice that switch flip where you really wanted to do filmmaking?
I don't know exactly what it was. I remember, I don't know exactly when it happened. I would say it had something to do with me when I'm going to rephrase that again. When I first bought a camera, which was probably like 2016, 2015, and I started taking photos just as a hobby. That kind of like introduced me to this world of like, okay, you can make money with cameras and being creative and doing something different. Obviously, photography is a really hard industry to make a lot of money in. So I was still pursuing other things with college and whatnot. And then at some point when I took that year off and I traveled and I realized, okay, there's this industry here where people are like, being creative and making money, and that's their career. And it seemed like a cool thing to do. So, and at the time my photography was progressing, and I really kind of just doubled down on it and decided, like, you know what, I think filmmaking is a cool route. I honestly did not know if it was the route for me. I just thought it'd be a cool route, you know?
Yeah.
I think all that coupled with the fact that when I grew up, like, I was, like, addicted to, like, Anthony Bourdain and, like, documentaries and stuff. And I was like, I can tie my interest for traveling into a way to make money, a way to be creative, all in one, like, giant combination. And I thought that was cool. So I think all that.
That is cool. So you mentioned you never knew if like filmmaking was going to be the right route, but it was like worth a shot kind of thing.
Yeah.
At any point did you think college wasn't like for you? Because I had that realization where I was like, I just don't think college is for me. And that was like the last time I had dropped out. I really realized that. Did you ever have those thoughts like, I don't know if this is for me?
Whenever I dropped out the first time, I honestly didn't know I was going to go back. I mean, there was no plan to go back. And leading up to me deciding to drop out was like one of the biggest internal battles that I've probably ever had to fight. And I think
you've always been like a studious person. Like school was always, you were always good at school.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call myself studious. I think if people want to say I was good at school, that's fine. But like, I was never like interested in it and never like focused on it. I think my own interest in like looking up random shit on the internet throughout life allowed me just to have like a backlog of knowledge. That way, whenever a test came, I was just like, oh yeah, that, and that.
I've already read on this.
Yeah, but it wasn't because I paid attention in class. I think it was just because I already looked it up on my own time, you know? Especially anything like social studies or history, like I didn't study or even pay attention to those classes. I would just generally know because I watched History Channel instead of Disney Channel kind of thing, you know what I mean?
What about, I want to kind of like loop back to when you first moved to Corpus Christi, which obviously the family was all about because, you know, vacations at the beach. But was there any difficulties with like living, you know, 3+ hours away from home? Or did you think it made you like grow into like, you know, who you are? Or what was that like living 3 hours away from home?
Honestly, it wasn't that difficult. Like I already lived on my own at Texas State for that short period of time. I think mom and dad had more worries that I was going to be able to take care of myself, but I was just like, it's not that big of a deal. Also, I had like a badass apartment and laundry and services like right across the street, so I was just like, it was chilling. I loved it. It was great. I mean, would recommend everybody to kind of, I think, go farther away for college. If I was to do it all over again, I would have left the state, given financially I could have taken care of it.
I think if I could go back in time, I don't think I would have left the state because I'm too much like grown into like my friends here. Whereas you're like, I'll make new ones. I don't care. Like you're like, I'll stay in touch with the ones that matter.
Yeah.
But I think I would have probably still gone to Texas State. Ideally would have loved to go to UT, but I think I would have immersed myself more in college. Like I always said, I wanted to do a sorority, you know, like that's like my thing. And so I feel like those were my biggest regrets of doing college, I guess, quote unquote, the wrong way.
Yeah, and I think
So
sororities and frats are good just to keep people on track because, like, I think by giving yourself a community of people that you're going through college with, like, you have to keep up, and by having to keep up, it'll force you to get done and get through the process, you know? So I think that makes sense.
All right, I have one last, like, closeout question for you. What is the biggest advice you could give to someone, like, these seniors that are having, like, this weird year right now because of Corona, but they're about to go into college for the first time, or maybe the juniors that are applying, whatever it is, what's like the biggest college advice you could give them?
Going into college, I think the cliche answer is just to immerse yourself into like the culture of campus and like to join clubs and do all that kind of thing. I think that's very important. Like while I was at TAM UCC, I co-created a film society where we'd all just hang out, talk about movies, make short films, stuff like that. And just having that community was really, really cool to, you know, keep me engaged and get me involved. Other than that, there has to be something better than the cliche answer, but I mean, I think...
But I feel like that's
it's very true. Like, if you're not engaged with people who are on campus and what's going on with the campus, then you're not going to care. You're going to just go back to your personal life of making money at working at Starbucks or whatever, and
which both you and I both went through by
Yeah.
the short time you lived at home and the whole 5 years of my college experience where I lived at home, being so disconnected from that community and just not doing well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
No problem. It was super fun.
You can find my brother at Arthur Lung on Instagram, and I'll link his website down below in the show notes. He's been on some really, really cool projects. Obviously, like he said, he's working on Queer Eye right now. Well, they're on pause because of Corona, but yeah, he's on the video production team of Queer Eye. I hope I worded that right, buddy. But he does some really cool stuff, so check him out down below. And thank you guys for listening to this episode. It was so much fun to record and chat about college because we've both been out of it for a minute now and obviously had very different experiences throughout college. And let me know over on my Instagram what your college experience is like, or what you went through, or what you're excited to go through in college if you're about to go. And make sure to give this podcast a review. It really helps me out and get noticed on all the different platforms. And follow me on Instagram and like my page on Facebook. And you'll know where to find me. Same time, same place next week. Toodles.